Twitter skews the medical debate. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. The Twitter files are now turning to the medical debate, specifically regards the virus that shall remain nameless. As you know, I have a medical degree, and I cannot imagine any area needing more open debate than the treatment of infectious disease. That goes double for an apparently airborne disease with a reputation, deserved or not, for near fatal case lethality, meaning that it kills all or nearly all who catch it. If you don't know whether an infection is airborne or not, and whether it is uniformly or only occasionally lethal to those who catch it, you jolly well had better find out, and fast. But Twitter heavily rigged the debate, meting out punishments in some cases for sharing official data. This is wrong for two reasons: for censorship and for promoting public health policy that, I maintain, is getting innocent people killed. A provocative statement? You bet your life it is, and I mean it to be. Before I dive deeper into it, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which quotes Plato, saying, "No man is more hated than he who speaks the truth." And that is definitely the truth. A lot of people, Twitter actually provoked a lot of hate for people who didn't deserve it. Now, one more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the little icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click there and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. First, some background. The virus that shall remain nameless first exploded into the world consciousness in December of 2019. A hapless resident of Wuhan in mainland China, so the story goes, bought a bat at a wet market in that city. He took it home with him, made soup out of it, then sickened and died. But before he died, he had spread it to a critical number of people. Before authorities could react, the virus had stricken the entire city, allegedly killing most who caught it. Inevitably, the disease spread to the city airport, and from there, worldwide. That's the official story. In fact, we now have people admitting that Dr. Anthony S. Fauci, on orders from President Obama, authorized the use of government funds for gain-of-function research on certain viruses associated with the common cold. Rumors have this research happening in Ukraine and possibly provoking Russia's special military operation in that country. At some point, the laboratories involved packed up their samples and notes and shipped them to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, who released it. Most still say by accident, but some say deliberately. In any case, that same Dr. Fauci, pretending to be the chief of all chiefs of staff of all American hospitals, or in Italian, capo di tutti capi di Stato Maggiore di tutti gli ospedali americani, advised President Trump to treat this agent as one that would spread impossibly fast and kill everyone, or nearly everyone, who caught it. That was a critical error. It ultimately cost Trump the election, and definitely crashed the economy. With that in mind, we now turn to Twitter Files Part 10. I will, as ever, share links in the description to every other tweet in the thread from a new reporter named David Swag. He comes from the Atlantic. I remember I used to block him on my personal account. Well, you're unblocked now. And now I'm going to quote you. Thread begins. The Twitter Files. How Twitter rigged the debate on the virus that shall remain nameless. How? By censoring information that was true but inconvenient to U.S. government policy, by discrediting doctors and other experts who disagreed, and by suppressing ordinary users, including some sharing the CDC's own data. So far, the Twitter files have focused on the existence of Twitter's secret blacklist, how the company functions as a kind of subsidiary of the FBI, and how execs rewrote the platform's rules to accommodate their own political desires. What we have yet to cover is the virus that shall remain nameless. This reporting for the Free Press is one piece of that important story. Stop right there. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to use the expression the virus or the virus. When you hear it, it will always mean the virus that shall remain nameless, unless I tell you different. The United States government pressured Twitter and other social media platforms to elevate certain content and suppress other content about the virus. Internal files at Twitter that I viewed, meaning David Swag viewed, while on assignment for the Free Press, showed that both the Trump and Biden administrations directly pressed Twitter executives to moderate the platform's pandemic content according to their wishes. At the onset of the pandemic, according to meeting notes, the Trump administration was especially concerned about panic buying. They came looking for help from the tech companies to combat misinformation about runs on grocery stores. The trouble is, there were runs on grocery stores. And it wasn't just Twitter. The meetings with the Trump White House were also attended by Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and others. And I'll make no bones about this. These are pretty high-level people involved. When the Biden administration took over, one of their first meeting requests with Twitter executives was on the virus. The focus was on anti-jab accounts, especially that of Alex Berenson. In the summer of 2021, President Biden said social media companies were killing people for allowing misinformation regarding immunization. Berenson was suspended hours after Biden's comments and kicked off the platform the following month. Berenson sued and then settled with Twitter. In the legal process, Twitter was compelled to release certain internal communications, which showed direct White House pressure on the company to take action on Berenson. A December 2022 summary of meetings with the White House by Lauren Culbertson, Twitter's head of U.S. public policy, adds new evidence of the White House pressure campaign and comments that it repeatedly attempted to directly influence the platform. Culbertson wrote that the Biden team was very angry that Twitter had not been more aggressive in deplatforming multiple accounts. They wanted Twitter to do more. Twitter executives did not fully capitulate to the Biden team's wishes. An extensive review of internal communications at the company revealed employees often debating moderation cases in great detail and with more care than was shown by the government toward free speech. But Twitter did suppress views, many from doctors and scientific experts, that conflicted with the official positions of the White House. As a result, legitimate findings and questions that would have expanded the public debate went missing. There were three serious problems with Twitter's process. First, much of the content moderation was conducted by bots, trained on machine learning and AI. For the uninitiated, that means artificial intelligence. Impressive in their engineering, yet still too crude for such nuanced work. Second, contractors in places like the Philippines also moderated content. They were given decision trees to aid in the process, but tasking non-experts to adjudicate tweets on complex topics like myocarditis and mask efficacy data was destined for a significant error rate. Third, most importantly, the buck stopped with higher-level employees at Twitter who chose the inputs for the bots and decision trees and subjectively decided escalated cases and suspensions. As it is with all people and institutions, there was individual and collective bias. With the virus, this bias bent heavily toward establishment dogma. Inevitably, dissident yet legitimate content was labeled as misinformation, and the accounts of doctors and others were suspended both for tweeting opinions and demonstrably true information. Exhibit A. Dr. Martin Kulldorff, an epidemiologist at Harvard Medical School, tweeted views at odds with U.S. public health authorities and the American left, the political affiliation of nearly the entire staff at Twitter. Internal emails show an intent to action by a moderator, saying Kulldorff's tweet violated the company's medical misinformation policy concerning the virus, and claimed he shared false information. But Kulldorff's statement was an expert's opinion, one which also happened to be in line with immunization policies in numerous other countries. Yet it was deemed false information by Twitter moderators, merely because it differed from CDC guidelines. After Twitter took action, Kulldorff's tweet was slapped with a misleading label, and all replies and likes were shut off, throttling the tweet's ability to be seen and shared by many people, the ostensible core function of the platform. In my review of internal files, I found countless instances of tweets labeled as misleading or taken down entirely, sometimes triggering account suspensions simply because they veered from CDC guidance or differed from establishment views. A tweet by a user calling himself Kelly K. of Georgia, a self-proclaimed public health fact-checker with 18,000 followers, was flagged as misleading and replies and likes disabled, even though it displayed the CDC's own data. Internal records showed that a bot had flagged the tweet and that it received many tattles, what the system amusedly called reports from users. That triggered a manual review by a human who, despite the tweet showing actual CDC data, nevertheless labeled it misleading. Tellingly, the tweet by Kelly K. of Georgia that was labeled misleading was a reply to a tweet that contained actual misinformation. To be specific, the tweet claimed that since December of 2021, the virus had been the leading cause of death from disease in children. The virus has never been the leading cause of death from disease in children. Yet that tweet remains on the platform, and without a misleading label, whether by humans or algorithms, content that was contrarian but true was still subject to getting flagged or suppressed. Another tweet was labeled misleading, even though the owner of this account, a physician named Eusebius Yamoshik, was referring to the results of a published study. A study showing that the jab, especially the mRNA versions of it, when given to teens, young adults, and people in their 30s, is associated not merely with myocarditis, but with cardiac arrest. Now, hang on, everyone. I'm going to explain those two terms later on. Let's take a break here, because I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. The sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, the employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Now, whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. Now, let's pick up the thread again, shall we? Andrew Bostom, a Rhode Island physician, was permanently suspended from Twitter after receiving multiple strikes for misinformation. One of his strikes was for a tweet referring to the results from a peer-reviewed study on mRNA preparations. A review of Twitter log files revealed that an internal audit conducted after Boston's attorney contacted Twitter found that only one of Boston's 5 violations were valid. The one Boston tweet found to still be in violation cited data that was legitimate but inconvenient to the public health establishment's narrative about the risks of common garden variety flu versus the virus in children. That this tweet was not only flagged by a bot, but its violation manually affirmed by a member of staff is telling of both the algorithmic and human bias at play. Boston's account was suspended for months and was finally restored on Christmas Day of 2022, meaning 2 days ago. Another example of human bias run amok was the reaction to a tweet by Trump, telling people not to be afraid of the virus and not to let it dominate your life. Many Trump tweets led to extensive internal debates, and this one was no different. In a surreal exchange, Jim Baker, at the time Twitter's Deputy General Counsel, asked why telling people not to be afraid wasn't a violation of Twitter's medical misinformation policy on the virus. Yorav, Twitter's former head of trust and safety, had to explain that optimism wasn't misinformation. Remember Kelly Kay from Georgia, the one with the CDC data tweet? Twitter's response to her is clarifying. We will prioritize review and labeling of content that could lead to increased exposure or transmission. Close quote. Twitter made a decision via the political leanings of senior staff and government pressure that the public health authorities' approach to the pandemic, prioritizing mitigation over other concerns, was the science. Information that challenged that view, such as showing harms of the preparations designed to confer artificial active acquired immunity to the virus or any other agent, or that could be perceived as downplaying the risk of the virus, especially to children, was subject to moderation and even suppression, no matter whether such views were correct or adopted abroad. What might this pandemic and its aftermath have looked like had there been a more open debate on Twitter and other social media platforms, not to mention the mainstream press, about the origins of the virus, about lockdowns, about the true risks of the virus to kids, and much more? Thanks to Mike Schellenberger, Leighton Woodhouse, Lee Fang, and the team from the Free Press for their help reporting this story. The thread ends here, but Zweig then dropped a tweet linking to his much longer essay at the Free Press. Furthermore, Elon Musk promises more to come, and I have a link in the description to his tweet making that promise. This thread has at least 2 medical terms that most of you are not likely to understand. So I promised you a glossary, and now I'm going to deliver. Myocarditis is inflammation of the muscle wall of the heart. That's a very serious problem, and it can and does lead to heart attacks. Cardiac arrest means a heart attack. It literally means that the heart stops. That is the #1 hurry case in any hospital. If you're in a hospital and you hear the call cardiac arrest or code blue or simply code, get out of the hallway. Find some doorway to duck into, but get out of the way. Before long, a team is going to come running, flying, and pushing a heavy 4-wheeled cart called the crash cart. They will bowl you over if you don't duck out of the way. I've never seen it happen, but I wouldn't be surprised. The crash cart is loaded with electronic equipment, oxygen cylinders, mask and bag devices, all sorts of things to use to get a heart beating again and to keep the patient alive while you're doing it. Now, if it's that serious inside a hospital, imagine how serious it is when it happens on the street or in someone's apartment. Public health authorities try to help by training ordinary civilians in basic cardiac life support. That's the compress and the mouth-to-mouth routine. They also train all first responders and many in high contact positions in advanced cardiac life support. If you have ever seen a device labeled AED, that stands for Automatic Electronic Defibrillator, that's what it's there for. Know where the nearest one is, at school, at the gym, wherever. You should be able to find one in any hallway. And if anyone asks you to fetch one, seconds count. Don't think about it. Get it. You just might save a life. All that to say that this debate was as serious as a debate gets. In any debate, we expect a standard of the truth and respect for it. That applies especially to medicine. Wrong decisions can cost livelihoods at best, at least, and lives at worst. This thread shows direct evidence of two things. First, obviously Twitter skewed the debate, as David Zweig said they did. If you listen to my channel very often, you know that the Twitter medical misinformation policy on the virus is no more. Twitter rescinded it shortly before it started restoring people's accounts. Second, it shows that the United States government policy costs economic dislocation and life. To judge Twitter's old management, we must remember not only that Twitter was suppressing medical information, but what information it was suppressing. Worse than that, Twitter was promoting misinformation, like saying the virus was the leading fatal infectious agent in children, which, to repeat, it never was. David Zweig ends with the most important question. How might the pandemic have worked out had Twitter and other platforms and the legacy media fostered an open debate? Let's ask the Swedes. They never locked down, preferring instead to isolate those who, in their judgment, probably sound, couldn't afford to get the virus. Their economy survived, and so did their people. Whereas in this country, people have quit the labor force, and many have died who might not have had to die. Most reactions in the immediate aftermath showed, thanks to Mr. Zweig, an outrage at the U.S. government's conduct. Now, one person only suggested that Zweig showed bias against the Biden administration by passing the Trump administration. I have a link to that in the description. Well, another user reminded him that Zweig does in fact implicate both administrations, which brings us yet again to a point I have repeated and often. Donald J. Trump was not the best judge of character of all who have held the office of president. Having no experience, he came to Washington without his own team to pull the levers of government. Furthermore, Anthony S. Fauci, MD, has literally seen presidents come and go at least since Reagan, and Trump could not imagine that anyone would lie as convincingly as certain officials apparently did. Previous installments of the Twitter files have conclusively shown how deep the corruption runs in Washington, in addition to showing how the FBI made Twitter roll over and get with the program. Trump's lack of imagination cost him and the country dearly. But then, Trump could not imagine America's top doctor lying to him. Nor could he imagine a populace taking care of its own health, thank you very much, without a big medical establishment to tell people what to do. And make no mistake, American medicine is at moral hazard. Its function is to collect big fat fees for its members and not to keep people well. Twitter Files Part 10 will serve Americans and other human beings only as well as they learn its lessons. Twitter did more than serve the interests of the United States and most other Western governments. They serve the interests of a profession at moral hazard and having a governing council at least as tyrannical as the Central Committee of the Communist Party of any present or past communist country. As badly as Twitter acted, various boards of medical examiners have done and continue to do worse. After all, Twitter does not revoke licenses to practice medicine. Medical boards do that. Nor does or did anyone at Twitter originate medical advice. They passed along the advice of others, passing on bad advice and suppressing good advice. But whom shall we condemn the more? A censor working from a false premise, or the authors of that premise? Maybe. And to paraphrase Jack Nicholson, I'm just spitballing here. A free people needs to overhaul or abolish organized medicine. Maybe we as patients would do well to learn how to take care of ourselves by ourselves. We have the incentive to stay alive and well. Doctors have an incentive to keep us sick and coming back and back for prescriptions. And modern American doctors, especially since Roe versus Wade, have watered down the oath that Hippocrates of Kos made his students swear. Let us then paraphrase Thomas Jefferson once again. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all humans are created equal and deserve equal dignity, that they are endowed by their Creator with exquisite systems having a design to keep them safe from other creatures whom that same God placed on this earth to serve as its cleanup crew. That to secure good health, humans receive training as doctors and swear an oath never to bring harm upon any. And that when the establishment of such doctors stands in violation of that oath, it is the right of the patient community to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new establishment in such form and having such codes and standards of conduct as will seem to them more conducive to their safety and good health. Prudence indeed will dictate that one does not abandon a central paradigm of physician's regimen and training for light cause. Furthermore, all experience has shown that humans are more disposed to suffer, while honest mistakes are sufferable, than to right themselves by throwing off those institutions to which they have long been accustomed. But when an establishment makes a mistake of the magnitude we have seen with the virus that shall remain nameless, it is the right, it is the duty of patients everywhere to withdraw patronage from such an establishment and stand ready to patronize a new one. That is what we deal with here. And that is the most important thing Twitter Files 10 has revealed. Link in the description of the article, to the thread, to Elon's promise of more to come, to the one protest tweet, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlines.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel, and links to my Twitter Files playlist, to my video about Twitter revoking its medical misinfo policy, and to one other that I'll choose from another influencer. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.